So now that we have the ability to control the robot in the forward and backwards direction, or to drive the robot forwards and backwards using the left joystick y-axis, we need to figure out how to use the right joystick x-axis in order to actually rotate the robot both clockwise and counterclockwise. So what this looks like is that whenever you give the joystick an input to the right, the robot should spin in the clockwise direction, like this. And whenever you give it a input to the left, it should spin counterclockwise. And so, particularly about this motion, we need to realize that whenever we turn the robot clockwise, like this, that the left side motors will spin forward and the right side motors will spin in reverse. And then to move counterclockwise, it's the opposite. So the right side motors will spin forward, and the left side motors will spin in reverse. So, in order to get input from that right joystick along the x-axis, we need to start by adding controller 1 dot axis 1. Again, that's that right joystick, right axis. It should be labeled with a 1 dot position parentheses. And so what this does, again, like similar to controller 1 dot axis 3 dot position parentheses, this returns a value of from negative 100 to 100, where if you push that joystick completely to the right, it returns a value of positive 100. If you push it completely to the left, it returns a value of negative 100. And if you just don't mess with it, leave it idle, it returns a value of 0. So we think about this in terms of complete movement of the robot. If we wanted to drive forward with the robot, we'd move the left joystick y-axis. And so when we do that, this function right here, controller1.axis3.position parentheses, which corresponds to that left joystick y-axis, will return a value of 100, plus the input of the right joystick, which we won't be messing with the right joystick if we just want to drive forward. And so that will return a value of 0. So we'll end up with 100 plus 0, which of course is 100. And so our left side motors will spin at 100% velocity, which again is exactly what we want when we drive the robot forward at full speed, right? The left and the right side should be at 100% velocity. And so what if we want to turn the robot in the clockwise direction? Well, that's when we press the right joystick completely to the right. So this function right here, which corresponds to the left joystick y-axis, right, forward and backwards, will return a value of 0, since we won't be messing with that to do clockwise and counterclockwise rotations. So we're spinning clockwise direction in particular. Controller1.axis1.position parentheses will return value of 100, right? Because we're pushing that joystick all the way to the right. And so that ends us up with 0 plus 100, which equals 100. So then the left side motors will spin at 100% velocity, which is exactly what we want whenever we want to perform a clockwise rotation. We want the left side motors to rotate forward and the right side to rotate in reverse. So this actually ends us up exactly with the functionality we want for the left side in order to go forwards, backwards, clockwise, and counterclockwise. So now with the right side, it will be slightly different. We'll do minus controller1, or your controller name, dot axis1 dot position. And the reason we do this is because whenever we want to turn clockwise, or whenever we give it a positive input on that right joystick, whenever we move it to the right side motors need to actually run in reverse and not in the positive direction. So if you push that joystick to the right, controller1.axis1.position will return a value of positive 100, but we want that to be negative 100, right, because we want it to run in reverse. So we can just simply add a minus sign in order to make it a negative. So now, whenever we push that joystick to the right and want a clockwise rotation, the left side will spin forward, and the right side will spin in reverse because we have that negative symbol. And then what if we want to perform a counterclockwise movement? So we actually want the right side to run forward. Well, we're pushing the joystick to the left, which means controller1.axis1.position parentheses will return a value of negative 100. And then negative times a negative is a positive. So that will run the right side motors at positive 100, which again is exactly what we want to run the robot in a counterclockwise motion.